Gymnasium in Saldanha in 1965. He obtained a degree in social sciences with economics and business economics in 1970. He joined Schoemans in December 1970 as a salesman, right? And is still here today. I think that deserves a big round of applause. And he's been involved with this ever since 2017. Now, he did an executive MBA at UNISA in 1994/95, and he became the CEO of Schoemans in early 2000. He is a founder member of the Namibia Stock Exchange and chairman for 2 years. And he has several directorships. He has represented Namibia at the African Union, Addis Ababa, and in Washington, D.C. And he is the chairman of the Namibia Scientific Society. My goodness, I tell you. In addition to that, he is now listen to this. He is an international scuba instructor. Now, you know, for us black people, we don't really mix well with water, so I should definitely take some lessons for you, and is still diving actively even today. Okay? He's also the Commodore of the Walvis Bay Yacht Club, inline hockey league player, even though he's no longer active in that area. And in terms of sports, he does diving, boating, ski boating, fishing. Oh, wow, okay. I think I'll stop right there. You guys get the message. Please let us give Mr. Schoeman a big, resounding round of applause.
A minute to get my notes together quickly. Old age is a terrible disease. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Guten Morgen, meine Damen und Herren. Welcome here. Board of Directors, all our VIB guests, and all the rest of the important people here, a very big welcome. You've been welcomed already. Thank you, Johan. That's better. Okay. It is my pleasure to tell you a little bit about Schoemans. Before 1960, Mrs. Joey Schoeman and Mr. Hendrik Schoeman had their own interests. My father was an electrical engineer, and he had a radio business called Radio Electronics, or Radio Electric. And my mother was secretary to Harold Pupkowitz, whom I'm sure you all know. And that is, I think, where she got a lot of her background. They went to visit the Hanover Fair in 1958. Now, it's a long time ago, however, they met up with Olivetti there, and there they saw the future of automation, labor-saving devices, and the potential for the future, and they came back and they started Schoemans Office Systems in 1960. So next month, as a matter of interest, we will be exactly 63 years old. So we've survived a lot of other, I call it family businesses, because IBM was a family business, NCR was a family business, HP was a family business, and we, of course, now fully Namibianized. Olivetti started off with typewriters and with manual adding machines. And they then developed into electric adding machines, electric typewriters, and then finally electronics came in as well. And that is still today one of our agencies, dealerships, whatever you want to call it. Now, the interesting thing about Schoemans is that we put all the typewriters in not all the schools, but in a lot of schools, as we shared the government contract with Olympia, which was HH Enke in those days. For us to be able to service all these typewriters quarterly, because they needed that, and before all of the examinations, we had to service those typewriters throughout the country. So we trained local people. In the south, we used Namas and Damaras and the Rebot pastors, and in the north, all of the 6 Oshibambu tribes and the Caprivians, and we taught them how to service and repair our typewriters. Now, that was in the late 60s, so we've never looked back as far as diversity management is concerned. Well, they've got funny names for it nowadays, like employment equity and so on, but it's all in all diversity management. Then Olivetti came out with desktop computers, and it's a very little interesting story which I'd like to mention to you quickly. When Rossing Uranium started, it was started with a pilot plant from RTZ in the UK, Rio Tinto Zinc. And I went there as a salesman in early 1971. And the first thing they told me is, we do not allow hawkers here. Now, I remember that very well. In any case, I persisted, and then finally we put in an installation there. A very interesting installation. You can see this picture. Oops, my... Okay. Just that. Thank you very much. And now do I go back? Okay. Yeah, no problem. Okay. Thank you very much. We got it. The Olivetti desktop computers, they had the first desktop computers in the world. Now, the first big computer was called an ENIAC. It only worked for 2 minutes, and then some valve blew somewhere and they had to repair it again. But then Olivetti brought out this desktop computer, which is today called an electronic programmable calculator. But in those days, it was a computer. And Rossing had an atomic absorption spectrometer. Now, the purpose of that is they used to take the yellow cake, the uranium samples, and put X-rays through it, and they measured the uranium content. But that machine gave out BCD code, which is called binary decimals. And we had to convert that and input it into this desktop computer. So we developed ourselves here a solenoid input. So as the stuff came out there, this thing went tak, 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 and pressed the enter key. And they used that for 7 or 8 years to determine where they should be mining, where the uranium content is the highest. So that's sort of the Olivetti scene. We'll come back to that. Okay. Then, of course, electronics started. And Sharp was one of the first people to bring out an electronic calculator. And our Sharp association started with Schoemans in those days. And we've been a leader in technology ever since. So that was the Compet. The very first electronic calculator in the world was the Anita, but they quickly disappeared. In 1972, we launched the first microwave ovens in southern Africa, in Namibia. And we got a lovely traditional Japanese lady that dressed up in what they call a Maiko Kumino, and she helped us to launch the microwave ovens. And as you know, today microwave ovens is a consumer product. In 1980, Sharp came out with their copiers, and we then, of course, continued with that. Till today, Sharp is one of our major products, if you want to call it that. Then came the PC revolution. Now, I call it a revolution. It was really started by Olivetti, Apple, IBM, Hewlett-Packard, and so on. And in the beginning, there were no software available. There was no programs available. So we had to write programs, first of all in assembler, later on in BASIC. So Apple then brought out a program called VisiCalc, which was the first spreadsheet program in the world, and WordStar, which was the third word processing program. So the validity of PCs then grew as time went by. IBM brought out their PC, and that really gave final validity to the marketplace. Because before that, IBM was just doing mainframe computers, and they had a wonderful name as the computing company in the world. As far as engineers and QSs and so on, there were no solutions for them. So they learned BASIC as a language, and they wrote their own software. A matter of interest at Schoemans, we developed some interesting applications for them, like bill of quantities, space frame analysis, for those of you who don't know, it's these roof trusses, and pipe network analysis. You have a reservoir, and you've got to make sure everybody, all the houses have got enough pressure. Those are the kind of applications that we developed for them in those days. Then, of course, with all the PCs around, people needed training, so Schoemans started the first, and for a long time, the only training center in Namibia. And we trained people in computer orientation, because it was a new thing, in word processing and in spreadsheets. Then, of course, along came the threat of the year 2000. And I call it a threat because they said the world is going to come to a standstill. So we teamed up with Bull Computers in France. And for those of you that don't know France, they have 3 national monuments: the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, and Disney World. In any case, our main customer was the Office of the Prime Minister, or OPM. It was also called Other People's Money. And they had a big mainframe computer there, the ICL 2900, and we checked through all those programs, modified them where necessary, because the long and the short of that story is, it was only made, most programs only made provision for 1900, not for the year 2000. So we had to modify, check all the programs. And then when it came to the 31st of December, we went and sat on top of the Hoogland and watched over Windhoek to see what would happen on the morning after 12 o'clock. With a couple of beers, nothing happened. So we went down the next morning and did their salary run for them, which was the most important thing, and everything worked perfectly. So that was the Y2K story, except that we finally downsized a lot of the government departments onto HP Service. And they're still with HP today. The Italians are very loyal people. And they built Ruacana Power Station, which is still the only hydroelectric power station in Namibia. And the Kalawek Dam feeds the water into the 3 turbines. It used to only be 2 turbines, but they've added one. And then it goes through the so-called tail race tunnel out back into the river. Now, being Italian and very loyal, everything there was Olivetti. So I had to fly up once a month to go and make sure everything's working. We wrote programs for them for stores, for medical record keeping, and office applications. But then they became the very first users of laser technology. And we got that from Switzerland, from Wild Heerberg, and they used that laser to guide them to make sure the tunnels were absolutely symmetrical and straight. So that was the first use of lasers. In those days, there was no different. There was only one laser, and they could point it, and it went straight there. Some more innovative solutions. Just as a matter of interest, my brother Henk Schoeman. Henk, where are you? Ah, there we are. Good. He joined us in 1980, strong legal background, member of the sidebar, and he's been with us ever since. So he's in the meantime retired like I am now, because I'm old and grey and sometimes in the way. So, Schoemans was one of the founding members of the Namibian Stock Exchange. The first stock exchange, interestingly enough, was formed in Lüderitz during the diamond rush in 1910, so they could get money to mine the diamonds. But in 1992, we listed the first share with the first broker on the Namibian Stock Exchange. And today, it's one of the largest stock exchanges in Africa with more than 2 trillion Namibia dollars capitalization. So just a very interesting part. We opened Walvis Bay branch and Ushakati branch, as you can see there, the dates. And then in 2010, we formed Schoemans Technologies. Johan, Engelbrecht just should put up so that they can see you. He started at Schoemans as a storeman in 1996. Today he's a shareholder and director of Schoemans, and he ran that division for us, and today he's our COO, our Chief Operating Officer. Print management was one of our next innovations. As a matter of interest, Schoemans led technology in Namibia, and we're still doing so today. However, I've just touched on some of the main points. Print management is large corporations. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll try and stand still. It's large corporations that have a lot of copiers, and they don't want to look after them. So we put people on site, and we manage every printing device for them. Paper, ink, you name it. And they never had to worry. They just printed, and it was fine. Is that okay? Okay. So that was our print management solutions, and then some final thoughts. Ruan, who's here from PBSA, will remember NamPost came to us and said, what must we do about electronic mail, because we're losing a hell of a lot of business. So together with PBSA, we came up with the Hybrid Mail Center. Now, what the Hybrid Mail Center did, it received mail and newsletters and statements and invoices electronically, enhanced them, printed them, folded, and inserted them into envelopes, and NamPost guaranteed 48 hours delivery throughout Namibia. So, Ruan, you remember that? Good. And many Namibian corporations and education institutions like NUST use our Entrust identification card and financial card systems. If you look into that little room straight in front of me, our card machine is there. So throughout Namibia, most corporations use that for identification, which is a requirement today. Schoemans, being the leader in technology, decided to Namibianize Schoemans, because it used to be a family business, no longer that since 2015. So we got our first, I say that tongue-in-cheek, disadvantaged, I don't like the word, but partners in, which is Windhoek and Patrick Kaota, Windhoek, Junius Mungundu, and from there on it developed. They now have a 41% shareholding in Schoemans, which is wonderful. So that's excellent. And then we look forward to continued support and continued innovation, as you will hear just now. And thank you all for listening, and we'll take it from there. Thank you so much.
Wow, please give a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. In the words of Ziggy Mali, if you don't know your past, you don't know your future. And so we've taken a look at the history. Now we're going to be moving into our next presentation, which is going to be looking at the nature of our digital future. And this is going to be presented by none other than Vetumbwavi Mungunda. Now, he also has a very, 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 very long list of accolades. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to try and summarize. So, Mr. Mungunda is the director of Schoemans, Oryx, Bank Windhoek, Namibia Breweries, and he's also a previous managing partner of Deloitte and is the CEO of Standard Bank Namibia. Ladies and gentlemen, now you see even those few things I've mentioned already show you the weight and the character of the gentleman who is now going to lead us into our digital future. Please put your hands together for Mr. Mungunda.
Good morning, everyone, and really warm welcome to our partners, our esteemed Vice Chancellor. Thank you very much for hosting us in this very, really top-notch innovation facility, We really are proud of to be invited and to be hosted here. Also, thank you very much to some of our other partners. We are having some great engagements and discussions with MTC and NAST. I'm hoping that in a few months we will be able to conclude on those. Also, other friends here. I see Mr. Isaac Shombonde from NamPower. I think there is an extract of what the technology that was applied during the construction of Ruacana. He's from NamPower, and I'm sure Theo will happily really share that with you. It was really a great pioneering, innovative in technology at that point in time. So to everyone, thank you very much for coming this morning. As you've heard from a very good friend, Theo Schoemans, he's still very alert and very young, but you really had a story of a pioneering, innovative history, a great legacy, an organization that has been in Namibia for over 60 years. And as you know, that will have been through, a number of challenges, economic and otherwise, political as well. And it has obviously come through all of that. But at the same time, as you've also heard from Theo, during that time, the organization had to reinvent itself almost every 10 years. And I think that's the challenge, to the lecturers and professors of business that are here. That is the challenge, is the organizations need to reinvent themselves. They need to challenge themselves. So what I'm going to share with you is part of that reinvention that we have worked on. So that's the directors of Schoemans today, and the shareholding. Mr. Theo Schoemans says previously disadvantaged, but it is I don't know why he had to do that, but maybe. But the shareholding is not only myself and Patrick, but it's also Dr. Angolo, who's unfortunately couldn't be with us this morning. She's not semi-retired like Theo and Henk. She's really retired, and she lives in the north, so she couldn't be with us today. And then obviously, as you had Johan, but the Schoemans family remains a major shareholder with 54% shareholding. So this is a Namibian company fully owned by Namibians, but it's also a transformational company as well. The other things, just in terms of when, I have now been working to kind of challenge the strategy of the business in the last, will probably be 12 months, 18 months now. And part of the challenges that we needed to kind of look at is that we needed to make sure that we understand, but we appreciate those rich legacies of pioneering innovation that this business and this family has come up with, and then use that as a foundation to say what should then be next. And that has been quite a very easy challenge for us, because we have really some great personalities in both Theo and Henk to make sure that they remind us of that history all the time, but at the same time also open-minded to say that as we go forward, where, what does the future tell us? So if we look at how we now see our purpose today, is we believe that we bring enabling technology that improves lives. And you will see later what we mean with improving lives. Is technology shouldn't be there just for the sake of it, and it shouldn't be there for making money. It should be there to make things easier for people to live, and technology should make it easier for businesses to transact, and for Namibian businesses to be competitive against other countries. And that's really the key thing, and that's really the challenge that we see for ourselves, is how do we make sure that Namibian companies, Namibian individuals, Namibian institutions have the technology for them to be better, to live conveniently, to live better, but at the same time, for those businesses to be competitive when you have to compete against companies from across. And part of that vision now, looking where we are, is that we look at the next 5 to 10 years as really positioning ourselves and putting a lot more emphasis on being a digital technology solution provider. So, but that doesn't mean that we're moving away from printing or IT hardware, but we are going to continue with those, but we really are going to bring a lot more of digitalization into those, whilst also working on new digital solutions going forward. And our values, we didn't have to reinvent the values, we just had to codify them. And especially my very good friend Henk sees that as the critical foundation of any organization. He's a very strong values person, and we just had to codify those values based on the stories that we've had, based on the history that we have had to learn. And one, obviously, as you've heard today, is pioneering. From the 1960s, this business was pioneering new technologies, new innovations into the Namibian market. Collaborations, integrity, and diversity. And I think just in integrity, we really absolutely believe it is important that we do business ethically and we do business honestly. And it is never easy, but we want to make sure that everyone understands that, our partners, our customers, but also most importantly, our staff, that we will always do business only honestly and ethically. So what is it that we are seeing in terms of the outlook? So we obviously coming out of a time of COVID, it reinvented how business is done, how people live. So, but if you look at the type of business and the sectors that we serve, there are certain outlooks that are quite important. The first one is that we are seeing more and more distributed workstations. So that was almost like, COVID pushed that a lot harder, but it was already starting to emerge even before that. People are starting, people are moving away from centralized, workstations, but it's going to be more and more distributed. We are also seeing an increase in collaborative technologies. Printing is evolution. There's evolution in printing. I think at some point people were saying that people are going to print less and less, but that's not what we are seeing. What we are seeing is that there is an evolution in the sense that printing is happening, but that printing has to be integrated with the digital world. So that's, I think, what is happening. Also automation. Automation really is becoming the future if it is not here already. We are going to see more of processes being automated. And Theo was talking about the technology that was introduced at NAMPost. I think just for the records, NAMPost remains probably the only postal office in Africa that records profits. And part of that, and I'm not sure there was going to be a colleague here from NAMPost, and part of that was that hybrid mail sender that was introduced about 7-8 years ago, because NAMPost had to reinvent themselves. They had to start to compete. Instead of just doing mail traditionally the way they were doing, they had to reinvent their business, where they started to compete in terms of electronic mail, but and then how do you bring that and then convert that and integrate that with the manual mailing processes, mailing systems. And that's part of, I think, the opportunities that are there. But automation, so effectively, NAMPost had to automate significantly. And that will have been, 10 years ago? Maybe 12 years ago. So that just tells you. But we are going to see more and more automation. We are also we are seeing a more extended equipment replacement cycles, okay? And That is coming out of the challenges in terms of the economies. There is less spending powers. I know some of the heads of ITs, where they would replace hardware maybe every 3 years, it is now getting to 6 to 7 years, generally. And then we are also seeing new ways of work for digitally empowered employees. People will work from home on this day, the other day they are working from a branch, then on the third day they will be coming and working in the head office. So these are things that are already happening, and obviously that means that those businesses that collaborate and work in where everyone is working will have to also reinvent the way they do business. So given those evolutions, also just internally what we had to also look at is that obviously, as we are a historically very pioneering and trusted Namibian business. But if we look at the future, we want to make sure that we remain future-oriented and technology-enabling. And that's quite it is a subtle shift, but it's a very important shift. The second one is that we had two large businesses that were operating separately in terms of the Schoemans Technologies and Schoemans Office Systems. We have now integrated these businesses. They are working as one seamless business all across. And then secondly, we also internally, like many companies and businesses that are here today, we are also a typical business with typical manual processes. But we have started a journey of 12 months ago to actually adopt a digital operating model. The challenge to the team is that, I don't know how many months left now, maybe 6 months, is we don't want to see any manual document in any of our processes. And we need to do that so that we can also kind of use that as an example. But that's quite a big challenge, because the economy that you are interacting with is manual. So how can you then insulate yourselves from that? So, but what we are going to be needing to do is, we obviously now have the technology to be able to convert those manual interactions into digitized interactions, internally. So that's then, as you know, Schoemans Office Solutions is printing, audio-visual equipment, some of the stuff that you see there, as well as also finishing equipment. I had to learn that what it means. But it is now, once you have the manual documents, is how do you get rid of them in terms of shredding and all of those things? How do you kind of get rid of the documents? And then the technologies, which is now another key division. They are all operating as one integrated business, but they still have separate business lines. So technologies, as you know, is IT hardware, IT software, and then also really smart security and surveillance technologies. And then the new business line that we now have created in the last number of months is the Schoemans Digital Solutions, and it has 4 key solutions. The one is digitization. So digitization is more about how do you digitize your processes internally so that you don't have manual interventions, you don't have manual documents. The second one is automation, and automation is how do you, and there's a difference between digitizing and automating. Digitizing is more around workflow. Automating is actually tasks in terms of where a person will do something manually, for example, calculating or faulting. So like what people used to do at NAMPost, you will get the mail, you've got an envelope, you put it in, you fault. When you automate, the machine will do all of that for you. That's automation. And that equipment, that technology has many, many applications across so many sectors in this country, and it increases your efficiency and also efficacy so greatly that you can't believe. And then the third one is systems integration or software integration. Is when you have, most of our companies have our own systems, but you have to engage with an economy that has got different systems. So how would you then make sure that you integrate your systems with the broader ecosystem, such that your operations are actually very seamless. And the key there, for example, is that you can imagine now if you have to import goods into Walvis Bay, but all the documents and all the interactions are manual, compared to where you just integrate seamlessly with all those stakeholders across that supply chain, that you get electronic alerts in terms of where your parcel is, where your container is, what is happening. If you need to make any payments, there are no manual interventions. It's all electronic. I've got colleagues from the banks here as well. And that's what we mean with systems integration. You now need to start to integrate. And then the third one, and I think most critically, is data. Data, I think, in our economy is significantly almost non-existent. Data in the sense of how we see data. I think the sector that has gone a little bit far in terms of data is the banking sector, but not quite there yet. But generally everywhere else, there's either no data. I was working on a company where we were interacting and we were looking for documents. It's a large company. We're looking for information. The information you will be getting will be in Excel. But it is also nowhere, this person will say, no, that information should be with that person or should be with that person. And that's a challenge. So data is, I believe, as an economy and as a country, is a significant opportunity for improvement and for growth. And that's something that I believe that we now have not only the technology, but we also have the people to be able to really develop that further. So if we look at the next 12 months in terms of key priorities for us, in Schoemans, one is digital offerings. As I said, those things that I've just spoken about. We in the last 12 months, we recruited a team, mostly from NAST. So, and these colleagues have been undergoing a process of training and skills development, because I always make the point that there's a difference between a qualification and skills, and people don't maybe appreciate that difference. That difference is huge. And I always also say that I think the one profession that does that very well is the accounting, not because I'm from there, but they're doing that very well in terms of taking a graduate, taking them through a formal 3-year training program. And in those 3 years, that person comes out of that skilled. And I think, and obviously some of the other professions have that, the law, the legal profession, the fraternity, has a bit of that, but it was only 1 year. Okay, the accounting is 3 years, so that's quite a critical thing. But if you look at like the in terms of software and computer, there is no profession. So there's actually no process of converting graduates into skilled people. But what we have had to do is that we took these young people, we took them through a process of training in the last probably 6 to 7, 8 months. But we believe that there's probably still a further 6 months to go for them to really, really be on top. But as we go on, one of the key things we are working on is to create a proper graduate development program around software and computer science. And because that's something that I'm very passionate about. I always tell people, if you look at the accounting profession, one in Black CA will have come through a program that I initiated. Someone was telling me that there was a banking sector forum about digital transformation, and over 50% of the people that were there were from a Standard Bank graduate development program that we put together there that was focused on digital transformation. And so skills development is actually a very easy thing to do. And I don't know why we do that. We don't do that often. And we really are, Schoemans is something that we want this to be a training ground for software and computer science people. But that means that digital operating model, as I said, we need to make sure that we finalize that, but we also need to make sure we have the skills. Another key initiative that we or the team is also put together, is something that I believe it's, but more information will come out quite soon, is what we call short-term rentals. So if you look at the equipment rentals, the more expensive equipment, companies buy that over and pay over a period of time. They buy that or purchase that under short, like rental programs, and that's normally, it's just like with vehicles, it's 36 months, 48 months, 60 months. We want to challenge and disrupt that a bit. We believe there is an opportunity for people to be able to rent, just like what you do with vehicles. There are also people that are renting vehicles for 1 week, for 3 weeks, for 1 month. Okay, so what we also want to do with equipment as well, and that program will be rolling out from 1 June, is that any company, especially the smaller companies, is that they can rent printers, hardwares or whatever on a 30-day notice. So effectively you rent, and then if you want to bring it back, you give Schoemans a 30-day notice, and then you return the equipment. We believe that that will be quite helpful for younger, upcoming, medium-sized businesses that do not want to fix themselves into a 3-year or a 4-year or a 5-year obligation. So the more detail of this will be coming out very, very soon, and we really believe that it will be quite a big support to younger and smaller enterprises. Then, as I said, I spoke about the software skills development program that we are going to be working on, and obviously as part of that, we really want to have a formal arrangement and partnership with NAST, and I believe that will. Then the last slide that I've got here is, we're saying that the technology that we're talking about should improve lives. That's a purpose. So part of what we want to do is that we want to challenge this technology to be used for good, for a good cause. So we are working on 3, and we have put together 3 almost like CSI programs. The first one is an impact lab, and in that impact lab, we are working with NAST and NTC. We already had one in March, and I see the young people from that program. This was the winning team, where we had a hackathon competition, where and the good thing about what was given to them was that you needed to come up with a technology that will solve a societal, social issue in Namibia. So not a technology to make money, but that will solve a social challenge in Namibia. And you need to define whatever that social issue is. And so they will then define the social issues in their mind, and then they say this is the solution. But I suppose now there are many hackathons around. How is this one going to be different? Firstly, we want collaboration. We want as many corporates to be part of this as possible. You will see then there is nothing about Schoemans there, so it's just an impact lab. So it's a platform where corporates can come. It will not be owned by anybody. That's one. The second one is that we want to have that as often as possible, maybe 2, 3 times a year. And then the most critical part is that we want to take these ideas that these young people come up with, work with those young people, and try and see if we can actually bring them all into full commercial deployment. So that's the key differentiating, and I think as part of this, I'm just inviting other corporates that could also be joining as well, joining NAST and MTC and Schoemans in this. The second one is Sunprint. Sunprint is that there are schools in the rural areas that do not have electricity, and because of that, there is a challenge in terms of just printing exam papers, tutorials, papers, and those types of things. So we are working with our partners in that, both from the suppliers of equipment, and then also partners we've been talking. I saw there's somebody from Pukevis here, from Mekatech, to come up with a technology, because you see, you need to try and look for equipment that will use as little electricity as possible, and then you come up with a solution so that you can have solar-powered printers that could then be deployed in these rural schools. So there we have also engaged with the Ministry of Education, and they are very, very, very keen to get this off the ground. So we hope that that will be coming out very, very soon. And then the last one is DigiWatch, and on that one is if you now go and across Namibia, you see surveillance cameras. Now, where do those surveillance cameras come from is the residents, but it obviously will be residents that can afford. Then they will put up those surveillance cameras, and then they have neighborhood watches, watch groups. So it's obviously for people that can afford. Now, what happens in those areas where people cannot afford, especially where the crime rates are high? Then those communities are left to their own devices. So what we have engaged the Namibian police for us to help to also deploy surveillance cameras in low-income, high-crime areas, so that they can also, the police and those crime agencies, crime prevention agencies can also be able to provide better support to those communities as well. So on that one as well, I think the announcement will also be coming out very soon. We are waiting for the police. I'm not sure whether... Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, so we will wait for the formal processes to run their courses in terms of the memorandum of agreements and all of that before that could be deployed. So I think with that, so that was just a bit of an introduction into the future. I hope that you is inspired by all of this, but it's a mouthful, it's a lot, but we really are all energized, and we are very, 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 very happy about the future of Namibia, and also about the future of technology and how we could help to stimulate that. Thank you very much.
The future looks very, very, very bright indeed. I'm sure many of you have heard the saying, a jack of all trades is exactly a master of none. But what you may not be aware of is that that's only one half of the saying. The complete quote is, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but far more often better than a master of one. Now, we at Schoemans believe in developing as many solutions as possible, and not just in providing solutions, but being masters in each and every single area that we work on. Our next speaker, who's going to do a presentation on automation, is none other than Ruan Marais. Now, according to his personal profile, Ruan is a young professional with strong technical and analytical abilities. He identifies himself as a detail-driven, structure-oriented, methodical individual with a high aptitude in understanding process flows and automation technologies. Yeah, if you're wondering what that means, essentially it means he's highly competent at what he does. Ruan started his career in the IT industry before moving on to production automation at Pitney Bowes to date. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Ruan Marais. No, you're allowed to continue clapping. He still hasn't reached the stage. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes, pleasure.
Thank you for the great introduction. All right. So my laptop decided to update last minute, so there's actually nothing on the screen. I'll be referring to the screens overhead. But yes, it's actually very interesting to hear a bit about the history, see what the ideas are for the future. And I think we are on the brink of being accelerated into what we have been experiencing as the technology age for quite some time. With the release of artificial intelligence and all of these technologies, I think a lot of people are actually quite nervous about it, but I don't think there's any reason to be nervous. I think a lot of these things need to be embraced, and it's ultimately, as long as it's used for the benefit of the greater good and advancing and improving the lives of people, that's really what it's about, then I think we will be okay. So I'll be talking just a bit about automation in a general sense. Then I'll cover some of the solutions that, rather the space in which we operate. And then I'll touch on some specific areas and systems that are available. So, talking about AI, I was sitting on Monday thinking, what can I say during this presentation within a 15-minute slot that can have some impact, that can kind of provide a holistic picture. And I was thinking about the profitability of organizations that adopt automation. So, of course, I've got a instance of AI running on my laptop, and I thought, well, let me see what it will say. So it came up with, not too much new, really. I was a bit underwhelmed, especially considering what these things are capable of. But it mentioned the usual suspects. It's about cost saving. It's about increased productivity. It's about enhancing your competitiveness as a business. It's about improved quality and consistency. It's about data-driven decision-making. That's a very important point, because when you have the right data and you have access to the data, it puts things into perspective and it provides all the clues and evidence necessary to drive your business forward. And then, of course, scalability. Now, I looked at this and I said, okay, that's all good and well, but one important point, it was a whole paragraph that it spewed out. It was talking about implementing automation effectively. Automation in itself, has its limitations. Okay, it's about applying it correctly. It's about taking your current circumstances, seeing where the pain is, and implementing it to address that pain, rather than implementing the technology for the sake of technology, right? So, by considering that key point, that whatever's implemented needs to be done so effectively. Now, how do we do that? It's with the right technology partner, right? It's with the right solution. And it's about having the skill sets to drive those projects through from start to finish. And that's what I think we can offer in Namibia, along with Schoemans. It's about being the right partner, working alongside you, having access to some of the latest and greatest technologies in the world, and to bring it to Namibia. So where do we apply this specifically, or in which areas do we operate? So I created this little slide. It kind of summarizes it at a very high level. And if you look on the left, it's really about in the warehousing space, so from warehouses to consumers, then from warehouses to pharmacies, which in turn serve the consumers and the patients, but also from warehouses to hospitals and then through to patients. So the golden thread, and also looking at our history, I mean, we haven't got too much time, but I just want to say that, it's always been around fulfillment. At Namibia Post, it was about taking statements, putting them into envelopes, as one part of the process, and distributing to the recipients. It's the same with e-commerce within the warehousing. So you are picking product, you are fulfilling it into a box, and then you are distributing to the customers. So within the warehouse space, you need the automation to assist you with that process. And that's where we come in. So It's about how you store and retrieve your items. It's about once you've retrieved and you've picked those items, how do you fulfill that into an order? You know, when you're dealing with thousands of orders, one order is okay, but when you're managing thousands, you need processes in place to help you, you know, reach your goal and reach your targets. Once the order is assembled, how do you package it? What equipment do you use to package these orders? And then, of course, ultimately, the logistics side is how do you sort it into the different routes so that you can effectively deliver. So that's from a warehousing perspective. And then, of course, it's about warehouse order building to pharmacy. And then obviously from pharmacy, how do you dispense and manage your medication through to the patient, and the same within hospitals. It's about distribution of medicines to hospitals, the technologies involved, how you track the flow of medication throughout a hospital, excuse me, through a hospital, which all is around patient safety again. It's about the sustainability of the organization, of course. It's about managing expenses, but ultimately everything plays into improving the service that patients receive. And that's where the technology plays. So that's at an overview. You can see the golden thread is always fulfillment, and that's been our evolution over the past 2 decades. So we won't, I'm not going to go into product specifics, but I want to speak about what's generally available and the benefits, right? So looking at warehousing and depots specifically, where we operate is in the areas of storage and retrieval. You can always, it's not a fixed all-in or nothing at all approach. There's different scales of automation that you can look at. So whether it is a fully automated storage and retrieval solution that inducts your stock receiving from suppliers, that automatically place onto conveyors, to build orders automatically, to go into an automated packaging machine, that's available through to manual or semi-automated, or rather semi-automated systems, where the system brings the item to you, but you need to pick to fulfill into an order, versus a manual a system which is process driven, which is still a level of automation. So if you can imagine providing a person with a hand scanner, and even though the process may be manual, you are picking manual, you're picking from a shelf, you're building the order by instruction. You can drive the process through software to ensure the accuracy that you desire and that you need to adhere. So you can see you have these different levels. So in this specific slide, you can actually see, from the storage and retrieval system through to order building, you've got a person there picking the items, placing it into a box. Well, actually, if you look bottom left, there's what we call a Veritote. It's a plastic box with adjustable sides. You place the items in this box, which then feeds into an automated packaging system. The packaging system actually dimensions the product. It looks at the length, width, and height of a product, and actually creates a box from a continuous fanfold load of carton, cuts the box to the precise size of the parcel, and then encloses the parcel within the box. And then from that point, it goes onto the conveyor. So in this specific workflow, which is quite typical around the globe, you've got one touch point, and that is the person picking the items and placing it onto the conveyor, which then moves on through to the automated packaging and sortation system. So that really covers from a warehouse perspective at a very broad level. There's many different technologies available, and the key is always about the partners that you partner up with to provide you the options that are available, and looking at your processes to adapt these technologies and select the right technologies for your business. Right, so if we're looking at hospitals specifically, this slide depicts the 2 typical workflows you would find and how you can implement technology or the technologies available within the different areas. So firstly, if you look at the carousels there on the left, you've got a vertical and horizontal carousels. This technology has been around for many, many, many years. It's obviously just been made a lot smarter with the evolvement of software. So in this specific case, it's really to do with storage solutions within the central pharmacy of a hospital. And what is it about? It's about the management of your inventory. It's about keeping track of expiry dates. Many hospitals we speak to write off a lot of money on an annual basis simply because of stock that they forgot about, and that has in the meantime expired, so it becomes unusable. So it does that inventory management for you. Of course, you have all the benefits that you would expect from a digital system, you know, keeping track of stock usage, what's been consumed, what's been reordered, what is on order, what's been received in the meantime, as well as the assistance for the healthcare worker. So it's about guided picking. So this system, these systems, or the carousel specifically, guide the healthcare worker to the location where the item is picked. So they request the item from the system, it brings it to them and illuminates the box to pick from. So you can see how that helps. Then if we just take a quick look at channel dispensers, it's about dispensing. This dispenses to the pharmacist, of course, not to the patient. It's fully integrated into the pharmacy software, and essentially the process remains exactly the same. The patient gives the pharmacist the script, the pharmacist captures the script, the dispensing takes place, and it brings the items to the pharmacist. So it again takes care of your inventory management, and all the benefits that you can expect of doing that digitally is now you have the advantage of. So if we look at the two different workflows, looking at the top section with the smart dispensing cabinets, what that is it's a decentralized medication management workflow within hospitals. So by decentralized means you keep much of your stock at a ward level, and the cabinet secures the medication without restricting access to those individuals who are authorized to use it. So these smart cabinets, again, manage your inventory and dispensing process with the idea to be efficient in what it is that you do. So in this case, a script is loaded onto the system. The patient with his script can be viewed on the cabinet at the ward level, and the dispensing can take place specifically to the patient. So you can see that there's a level of control exercised. Apart from the inventory management, it plays into patient safety again, where the guided picking and the validations steps when dispensing helps with that. And obviously from the smart dispensing cabinets, it goes to point of care, so that's where the medicine is actually administered to the patient. So interestingly enough, considering where the world is in technology, not many hospitals do that validation at the final step. So validation meaning positively identifying you as a patient. Okay, I'm just going to say they don't do it in a digital fashion, so a lot of it is manual. Where this enables you to validate the patient, validate the medicine, validate that it's the right time, the right dose being administered in the right way. I think that's critical. It's and these systems, there are systems available that enable that. So I wanted to just make a quick note. So it doesn't necessarily mean that these solutions are, again, it's not all or nothing. You can take a staged and phased approach where you start with a certain technology, because there's obviously change management and all these things involved, which we also assist with, and it becomes part of the project. But it's about implementing in a meaningful way so that at every step you reap the benefits of this technology. And then just touching on the bottom flow there, so you can also from a central pharmacy dispense into simple transfer cards. A lot of hospitals actually build inpatient orders into paper bags. just with a barcoded label on, which is fine. This just adds a level of security, and it assists the workflow in getting medicine from the central pharmacy through to the ward. And it's got a neat little cartridge system where your transfer cart has got all the medication for all the wards. You've got one person walking around and exchanging carts with the ward carts. And then, of course, the validation steps again, although it's not done on the cart itself, it's about integration into the hospital information system to then do those validations. This is very high level. We can talk, and generally my presentations are minimum 3 hours, but we will keep it short. Okay, so we've covered warehousing, we've touched on hospitals, and then I just want to touch on the retail pharmacy. So there, of course, we're seeing what's becoming more and more popular is automated dispensing systems within your retail pharmacies. So along with Schoemans, we offer something very unique. If you compare it, what we offer to the traditional we call it the classic style robots with your picking heads. It operates a little bit different. So this is based on a channel gravity system. It's a very simple system where you are doing organized filing. So it's one medicine per channel. It's very low on power. It works on a simple 24 volts to trigger, and this specific unit can be implemented in your typical retail pharmacy where you do a few hundred orders a day through to a centralized fulfillment facility that does 100,000 scripts per day. So that's the level of scalability it has. I think the big advantage as well is the rapid way in which it dispenses. So your traditional classic style robot dispenses one item at a time, sometimes two if the sequence is right, or three, where this unit dispenses the entire script, all the items at the same time. So where you would pick an item within 8 seconds, this does the entire script within 8 seconds. So it's just touching on the difference. So you can see it's always about items, how you store it, and how you dispense into or pick and bring it, make it available for fulfillment. Whether that be question papers into bags and into boxes for distribution to schools, whether it be statements into envelopes, whether it be medicine into medication parcels, it all remains the same thing. And this is just a little slide which touches on some odd ad hoc items, and it's around tablet counters and medical carts, which is part of the entire portfolio. But it's all about accuracy and the ergonomics around the procedures within a hospital and in a pharmacy. This is we distribute the range from Capsa Healthcare, which as well has got a rich history dating back to 1963. All right, and it's just to finish off with. Then there's just collection points specifically. This is more for retail pharmacies, and how do you back this? So this is just collection points. It's for collection of any type of item, and the key is about compact footprint. So you can do collections in a meter by meter footprint. And then the video. Do I play the video? Sorry, guys. I assumed the video would be before. Can I play it? This just demonstrates. It kind of it summarizes everything that we do in a nutshell. So this is a project that we did in the Western Cape to a service provider, and we're distributing all the chronic medication parcels throughout the province. This is the technology that builds the orders, and we did it with our partners from GBI in the US. So you can see it's about dispensing your high volume items in an automated way onto a conveyor, using robotic arms for the odd shaped items. In this case, it's bags. Ziploc bags. You've got a manual picking component which is driven by pick-to-light. Everything gets put onto a central conveyor that assembles it into an order for the pharmacist to fulfill into a medication parcel. So you can see you've got some labeling happening inline, you've got some labeling happening manually. From this point, it then builds it into an order. But the process always remains the same, whether it's medicine or building an e-commerce order or examinations going to a school. It's about validation. Every item is validated. And this is a real system. This is running live. Well, not on the video, but I mean, it's a video of a live system. Of course, once it's all validated, it allows the pharmacist to close. And from this point, it sorts through to the clinic to which it will be delivered to. And that's it. So thank you for listening. I think I went a little bit over time, but I hope it was somewhat interesting. It's very condensed, and we're available for any discussion, for anybody that wants to have any further conversations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Okay. Okay. So thank you very much for that video. The presentation, as I'm sure you were aware of, was quite technical. It really went into a lot of depth. And the reason for that is because we have quite a number of people here within the audience, some who are more technically sound and others who are more from a layman's perspective. So thank you for that video, for adding a bit of clarity in that regard. Now, our next presenter, who's going to be doing a presentation on digitization, is none other than Medmillion Handura. Now, Medmillion is a tech SME entrepreneur with over 15 years experience in the local ICT industry, with core competencies in positioning technology offerings into business solutions. He has notable experience within the Oracle and Microsoft ecosystems, and Med, as he's affectionately known, excuse me, is, also has a fairly strong grounding within local ICT cycles, and having pioneered the establishment of the first end-to-end 24-hour outsourced financial sector customer contact center for Bank Windhoek and Bank Gaborone, and further obtained the again first business process outsourcing operation with a staff complement of over 60 operational staff members that form the transition of company registry department out of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, which today you guys all know as BIPA. Now, today, Med is harnessing his expertise as the group business development, and he's also the head of Schoemans Digital Solution, which, as he says in his own words, is the pinnacle of his career today. Med, the floor is yours.
A very good morning to all of you. Thank you for joining us today at this occasion. I think we had a long morning. I'll try to be brief and short in terms of what we do. I just want to really give you a bit of a highlight in terms of our approach. And these are some of the typical questions some of our IT managers, your Chris Baisako, ask yourselves most of the time. What is the digitization? Where do I start? What's the cost structure of it? So, and I think the answer of what we are trying to do as a business is to help you to answer some of those questions. We've developed a very basic approach, how we actually go about doing that. Maybe let me, the screen is here. So key is really to define and understand your strategy. So we then spend some time with you through what we call a discovery session. The discovery session is really to understand where do you want to go with this digital transformation journey? How do you put the pieces together of what you need to do there? We then also looked at, in terms of implementation, because the change that's required is very quickly, the agility around how to do that is a very key area that we looked at when we do the discovery session with you. We then move on to look at data, as it was earlier announced. What is the data that we need to look at? So we then need to sit down with you. What is the data structure? How do we make sure that we visualize the data to Exco to understand how do they make better decisions in terms of that? We then move on to the next, which really, we talk about the technology. What is the appropriate technology that you need to provide? I mean, there's dozens of technology, there's a lot of intelligence, a lot of technologies, but what is appropriate to us? And I think the important thing is to make sure we are practical enough in terms of making sure what is the solution that works for you, because it doesn't fit everybody else. The next thing that we do there is the adaptation. With technology, change management and adoption of technology is a very critical element. Companies spend money in terms of deploying new technologies, but the center of everything else really relies on how is the user adapting to the utilization of that particular technology. It's an integral part in my life as an IT person. That's where the gap is, where we then start seeing 2 months down the line, the users are complaining, Melvin, the system is not working. I mean, most of us have heard that. The key issue that really leads to that dislocation is really the issue of adaptation and positioning adaptation in terms of technology. So in brief, that's really sort of the journey that we walk with you to help you as a business in terms of how do you arrive at the goalpost that you need to arrive to. Our commitment to you is to be honest in finding the solution that's appropriate to your business. We then leverage the capacity of our technology partners that we have talked earlier on as to how best we bring the technology to the fold. In the event that we don't have the capabilities, we then leverage their capabilities. As it was earlier mentioned by Vetu, it's important that we need to look at the skills that are necessary to help us build this particular technology ecosystem that all of us are actually playing into. So with those few words, we are committed to practically get involved with you, help you to shape and understand your technology journey and how best we can provide the appropriate solution to that. With those few words, thank you so much for coming. And then my colleague Johan will come on and just give a closing remark. Thank you so much.
Morning, everybody. I think everybody is ready for breakfast, so I will keep it short. Distinguished invited guests, captains of industry, our esteemed customers, members of the media, thank you very much for being here today. After all the exciting and inspirational presentation we had just heard this morning, we can see that Schoemans, as a pioneering brand that has stood the test of times, providing support to many businesses over a long period of time. The new visionary transformative digital future strategy is testimony of what has been said this morning, that of a bold move towards enabling digital technologies that transform our business sector and improve lives. Superior services has been our passion, sorry. And it is about building bond of unshakable trust with our partners, customers, and stakeholders. We commit to continue to make superior service part of our fabric of our business. You will agree with me that these milestones can only be achieved if we continue with this kind of investments we are making in our effort to build a world-class digital informational technology solutions. On behalf of Schoemans, I want to thank everybody here this morning, and those that couldn't be here, for 63 years supporting Schoemans. The dedication of our personnel to bring enabling technologies to our customers to improve lives is visible during the day operations. Thank you for all our presenters today, giving us a clear view of where we are and where we're going. Thank you to NAS for this inspiring venue. And thanks to our partners present here this morning. And
I want you to try and keep this at the back of your mind. When you think about businesses, there are generally two ways in which we make money, either by increasing our sales or by reducing our costs. At Schoemans, we have solutions for both of those categories. Now, if you all turn around and take a look at the back, we actually have 3 rooms that you can visit. We have automation, data, and I believe the other one is digitization. Please, 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 after you grab something to eat, mingle, go in, speak to us, and let's see how we can begin the discussion concerning how we can help find the perfect solution for you. With that being said, from me, Mayumbula Michael Chikulilwa of the clan Mulunga Munsanje, it has been a pleasure with my fading voice, but luckily it managed to keep me going till the end. Good morning and enjoy the rest of the day. Cheers.
I saved our lives. Okay, so camera. They can even sit there. Where Jonathan, then you frame them from there. CJ, you guys can go over there.
Testing, testing. We are, of course, live on the Namibian newspaper's Facebook platform, and what you just witnessed now was the digital solutions of Schoemans group. Of course, a very new line. We do know that they offer the office systems, the technological systems, and now, of course, there's a digital systems also. I'm joined here, as you can see, by a person that's really been in the Schoemans business for almost his whole life. Essentially, it is a family business, and we do have Mr. Theo Schoeman here with us this morning. We do thank you so much for making some time for us. And I think just to start us off, perhaps, look, it's been 63 years, right, since the existence of Schoeman. You were born into this business, essentially. Just talk to us on how you feel as a member of the Schoeman family, you know, seeing the business grow to this particular point of having a new digital solutions line after everything that you've been through.
Well, interestingly enough, I always stay on the forefront of technology. And, you know, if we look at things like the AI front, artificial intelligence front, 3 years ago already, I had people here from Texas that were working with NASA to develop an autonomous underwater drone. And we took them up to our various lakes, and they explored the lakes for us, and that's 500,000 AI code and 2,000 sensors. The idea is to use that on the moon Europa, which is one of Jupiter's moons. That's a project from NASA for 2035, interestingly enough. But I feel very good about the way in which we're going, because obviously it is our future. Total digitization, automation, and everything else that goes with it.
Indeed, and as we heard from the various presentations there, you have been, as a Schoemans Group, of course, been involved in many areas, you know, education, transport, health. What other spaces, you know, is Schoemans still going to get into? Because at this point, you're finishing them all.
Well, there are, of course, still solutions that will come along. But for the time being, we'll concentrate on the solutions which we've discussed today, you know, which is healthcare, packaging, artificial intelligence, integration of technologies. And just interestingly enough, Schoemans, because of our office equipment background and because of our computer background, we developed integrated solutions with that. So now to integrate our current technologies with digitization and robotics is, of course, easier for us than for a lot of other competitors out there.
And on that particular point, seeing that, you know, you do have the office solutions, the technological solutions as well, and now the recently, of course, launched digital solutions, is there going to be more of a focus on the digital solutions, seeing that, of course, that is where the world is going to? Or is there going to be a balance, you know, of paying attention to the digital, the office, and the technological? How is that going to work?
You're quite correct in that surmise of yours there. Very definitely, we will have 3 platforms that we're going to develop concurrently. So it'll still be the office solution side, as well as the computer side or technology side, as well as finally then our new division now, which is the digital division. They will develop concurrently, and we will push them concurrently into the marketplace with our partners and give them the right solutions for Namibia to move forward into the digital age.
Then lastly, Mr. Schoeman, just before we let you go, you sort of spoke a bit in depth about the prospect of artificial intelligence in the beginning of our conversation. But perhaps just talk to us on how artificial intelligence is, at the very least in the near term, in the near future, going to assist Namibians in various services, of course, by the facilitation of Schoeman. If you can perhaps just give us a sort of practical sense of what we can expect in that regard.
Artificial intelligence is, on the one hand, a wonderful technology, and on the other hand, a dangerous technology. A good example of that is now the head of Google's AI division has just currently resigned. As well as, for example, Elon Musk, who's warned the industry about artificial intelligence if it's used wrongly. If it's used correctly, it can aid us fantastically. If you look at Google's ChatGPT program at the moment, for example, if I wanted to do my speech today, every single bit of information that is available digitally is at ChatGPT. And instead of spending a day or 2 preparing my presentation, ChatGPT will do that in 3 minutes. Scan all that information for the last so many years and prepare it for you. So it's going to be a great help to all industries. However, as I said, it has the downside, and that's the question of getting laws into place to actually develop this in the right direction.
Mr. Schoeman, we do thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on the launch of your digital solutions.
Thank you very, very much. Appreciate that.
And just like that, we do come to the end of today's live stream. We do thank you so much for joining us on the Namibian Newspapers Facebook platform. Of course, this will still be there, so if you had missed it or you just joined us now, you can, of course, wait for it to be in our video section, and you'll definitely be able to see what the Schoemans Group has in store for you regarding the new digital solutions. But for your time this morning, for joining us, we do thank you so much.